One. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Here I am today with, hello, everyone. Here I am today with Mr. Artem Nazarov, also known as the the only creator behind the Russian Progress Project. Artem, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm not the only one, the only creator, because there's Ryan who helps me with translations, and Gabriel who helps me with subtitles. Otherwise, wouldn't be so hard. And yeah, I'm good. Thank you for this opportunity to speak a little bit in English, because I I haven't spoken in English like I don't know since many months maybe, and can't wait, and so excited about this interview, this topic. I know your interviews are fun, so
I hope.
waiting for the questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, other than creating contents for the world to learn Russian, you are a language learner yourself. So, my first question, basically, it's the first question every time just to get the story. How did this language thing become an interest for you? Where did this start? Because it's become such an important part of your life. Where did the interest start and how did that come about? What can you tell me about that?
Okay, so here there are two things. The first one is my trip to Europe, the first time in 2013, when I was 19 years old, and haven't been to any country. And my first country was Italy.
Oh,
Italy, and then we made a little trip. Well, I don't know, maybe not a little, up to the Netherlands. So we visited Italy, Switzerland, France, Belgium, and then the Netherlands. And my favorite country, the one I was really fell in love, I would say, it was Italy. And then I thought about learning Italian. And the second thing that influenced my interest into languages was the polyglot community I found on YouTube back in the same 2013. The polyglots like Luca Lampariello, Steve Kaufman, Benny Lewis, and many others just inspired me first to learn English, because at that time I couldn't really use this language, just some basic stuff from the school. And this way, just watching their videos and inspiring myself and getting some knowledge about how to learn languages, I started applying it to my Italian study. I I studied it by myself. I tried to do it with a tutor, but then you know, I I get really fast that it's better to go about it by yourself, because uh, you can do it in your own style, your own tempo, and this way, little by little, I learned Italian in 10 months up to an intermediate level. Then I got interested into other languages, switched my um, study direction from sociology to uh, international relationships,
the
and
language major, as they say.
yeah, and there was French. I studied French and English, of course. Then I got to Spanish and Portuguese. Started learning German as well. Didn't succeed, haven't succeed, and Greek as well. Some basic Greek. I also tried to learn Thai. Haven't got any success, but it was a nice experience. Swedish as well, because of the interest into the country and culture, and I guess we're going to talk about this as well later, why I learn languages. And recently I started learning Polish, and this is my biggest passion right now. I'm
Wow.
dedicating a lot of time to it. Basically, it's my main occupation right now. You know, the thing I do most of the time. That's
Cool,
how it started.
cool. And I saw that you did your like a first live stream in Polish recently, didn't you?
Yeah, right.
How did that
Yeah,
go?
right. Well, you know, this was a big, you know, mm, opening for me, and something I haven't expected because, first of all, there were many people. They native speakers who joined me and helped me along the way. I I am not very good at Polish yet, and they corrected me. And the fun thing was that they asked me some questions, and you know, you can talk as long as you want. So this is the great thing. You can practice your language. They're gonna ask you some questions and correct you. And one guy also sent me a donation.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was that was crazy that, you know, I have to pay them for this class. And you know, apart from learning the language and having fun, somebody can send you some money. So this is crazy.
Oh, I mean, we're living in a really, really cool time, you know?
Exactly.
Wow.
And I did a second one as well. For 2 hours, I read in Polish, read something in Polish, and this is so far one of the greatest, you know, ways to practice a language, because you can talk as long as you want, and people are gonna engage in a conversation, and that's great. There's also Clubhouse that I discovered yesterday, and if you want, we can talk about that. We can talk about that later.
Sure.
It's also a great way to learn language, and I'm curious just to, you know, discover new ways of learning.
And essentially, this is just like, it's like online groups where you just meet up and have conversations. Is this the essence of Clubhouse? It's quite a new thing for me.
Yeah, I downloaded it yesterday and spent like several hours in it. So I think that for knowledge, it's not very, you know, and for like development and stuff,
Hmm.
it's not the best way to spend your time, because you know, it's just a conversation, just somebody shares their opinion, and you can actually waste a lot of time.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you want to learn a language, there it's a very nice one, because you can choose. There are rooms, they call it rooms, and there it's like a topic. They select the topic, select the language. There's so many languages, any language you want, and you just enter this room, and you can just listen to the speakers. There are several speakers, like five usually, or you can ask if you can participate, and usually they accept you. And you can actually, it's like a radio or a podcast, but you can engage in this podcast. You can listen
Oh,
to it, or you can ask questions and share your opinion. And that's awesome, because I participated yesterday in a Brazilian class, Brazilian room, in Polish room, in English, and so many languages, so many opportunities. It's free. uh, so I'm really shocked about how it's how great this way of learning is, because you can listen to it as well as long as you want, and you can participate, you can speak, you can create your own rooms, where, like, for example, we're practicing Spanish or
mhm.
Russian or English, and then people can join it, and you're gonna speak as long as you and other people want. So that's a great opportunity for language learning.
For sure. It sounds like a lot of fun. And it's like so many of these social media platforms, it's like you can actually use it to be quite productive or to improve your life, or you could use it just to waste hours and hours. Like, you know, for example, Instagram or Twitter, if you follow, I don't know, like business accounts or financial accounts or these kind of things, like you can get a lot of good information. Or if you just follow like a thousand
Mhm.
pretty girls, you can be wasting a lot of time looking at
Mhm.
a thousand pretty girls. So yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool,
right.
this new idea.
But this social media is good is good in this way that it's audio. It's only audio. There's no image, no chats. So you actually cannot send a written message. You can only speak. So this also makes you want to speak and to listen to. So for language learning, it's gold.
Man, that does sound cool. I try to, I don't know, keep these kind of distractions out of my life as much as possible, but like that's like almost like a trap for me. I think like, oh man, if I get involved in that, I'm gonna be spending too much time on there. So I would need to be super
Exactly.
disciplined.
Exactly. I thought this way, but my friend told me about how he uses this platform, and I just tried and try
Pretty
as
cool.
well. It's awesome.
Nice.
TikTok, I guess TikTok is not, you cannot actually, get something, well, if you try, you can find something useful and practice languages as well, but it's a more visual platform. So dance, like some jokes, but Clubhouse is awesome in that way. It's like a podcast, and you can listen to it. So very, very useful.
Cool. So I was watching some of your videos, and you described your language learning process, how you learn a language, and the essence of it was that you you learn about the sounds, you learn how to read, you do translations, and you do some grammar. Is this still your strategy of language learning now, or has this changed in any way?
Yeah, I'm focused on the sounds and pronunciation from the very beginning, but the essence I would say is it's listening.
Hmm.
Basically, it's listening, massive listening to the content I understand, and the way to make it understandable is by translating. So I usually have use a podcast with a transcript or a video with subtitles. So there's also there always has to be the visual part, which is text, and the audio, because if you don't have audio, it's actually torture for you to start reading a new language without actually knowing how to pronounce everything
Sure.
properly, and so it's very slow process. And for me, the fastest way, because I'm not very big fan of learning the language. I'm a fan of speaking and understanding it and using it. So the this way I want to learn it as fast as I can to get to at least intermediate level, so that I don't have to struggle not understanding all the time and struggling to speak. So my goal is always to be comfortable at a language. And the fastest way, as I found, is by listening. By listening right now, as I told you before the interview, I'm listening to Polish for 5 hours, I guess, a day, because
Wow.
I have a lot of free time right now, and I'm in a new city, and I just put my headphones and walk and listen to it. Any show, I subscribe to some podcasts, and just doesn't matter, open and listen to it this way. And also now on Clubhouse, on podcasts, YouTube as well. So massive, massive, massive listening, and it really works because you memorize by listening to the same things many times. You memorize pronunciation, the way uh, grammar works, the words, everything basically, everything, and then it's going to be easier read, to speak, and to do everything with the language. And yeah, the essence is basically listening in any language I learned.
All right. And leads me perfect into my next question, because when I listen to you speak languages, I think the thing that really pops up with you versus maybe some other people is I think your accents in these languages are quite nice.
Thank
How
you.
much of this do you attribute um, to just, let's say, listening versus any kind of active role that you're taking in your learning? Maybe you do shadowing, I'm not sure, or how do you think you've developed such a nice pronunciation in many languages? Is it mainly listening or what?
Well, again, going back to the YouTube community and the polyglots, the ones that inspired me the most are those polyglots and speakers of a language that have a great accent, great pronunciation, and I always strived to have this pronunciation, and it's actually not the main priority, because the main priority, as I understand this, are words, to have as many words, and of course to be able to use them to understand and to speak. But actually, it's a nice thing to have a nice accent, the right pronunciation, intonation as well. It's something I'm really curious about, and again, when I listen, of course, I pay a lot of attention to pronunciation. Mm, and it's actually an active listening all the time. I'm focused. It's not possible all the time, and not trying to be a perfectionist in this sense, because otherwise it would be so hard. But I try, at least as far as I can, to concentrate on the message I get on the podcast. This one way I work on pronunciation. It's very, very important, because this way, by listening to a language a lot, you develop a feeling of how things should be pronounced. Uh, because if you listen to a lot, then when you read and listen to the way you read, you can feel that something is wrong, something is not the way you listen to it. So this is the one way, very important. The second way, as you mentioned, shadowing is also very important, and I also do this, but of course less than listening. And what else? It's very nice um, to listen and to look at the text, at the transcript at the same time. Uh, we can do this on YouTube, for example. If there are subtitles, I always try to turn them on to uh, to follow along,
Right.
and it's really helpful. What else? The thing that's really helpful to work on your pronunciation is the I don't know how it's called, but the alphabet, the International Phonetical Alphabet, something
The
like that.
IPA. Yeah, yeah.
IPA.
Mhm.
I don't use it that much because I'm lazy, but people who have a great pronunciation, they usually know it, and
Okay.
it's really helpful because so the symbols and the signs they're applicable to any language, and once you know them, it's easier for you to hear the right sound, because the problem as well is that we cannot hear the sounds that we don't have in our language, or we just yeah, basically we don't hear them. So this is really helpful. So basically listening, shadowing, a lot of imitation, asking for feedback to native speakers, and that's it. That's it. And I don't know, just a strive and desire, I don't know, to have this good pronunciation, because many people just don't actually want or care about that, and it's okay. The important thing is a message and your ability to convey this message. Pronunciation is just a detail, I guess. It's something not
I got
the
you.
most important. Mhm.
And I think I've seen this with me as a language learner, and I've seen this with my students. You know, I have a pronunciation class, and we'll go over some things, and I'll correct them on some things or explain some things to them that they never realized even existed or didn't know that they were not doing. And sometimes it's nice to have someone to point those things out. I know, like for example, my case in Russian, I guess there's like two L sounds, and like almost no one corrects me when I don't make one of the sounds. You know, I had one student that would help me with Russian, and I think it's like the soft L sound, right?
Mhm.
And I would just not make that, and then he would say, no, you need to make this. I'm like, how do you do that? And he's like, it's like la 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 la. And I'm like, oh my god, how do you do that? But like without these kind of things, I would just not have the awareness to even think to make that sound. So yeah, sometimes it helps.
Exactly, and same with me with my English, because you know, at school they teach us in, and you know, it's basically the same
Exactly.
beach and
Bitch.
beach. So these two words, they're the same. They teach us that it's like the same Russian e, but it's actually not. And you
Right.
have e and e,
Yeah. There's
e.
E and I.
Yeah, like mean and I don't know. Give me a word, like it's the same beach and the bitch, yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is
Heat
the thing I
hits.
hit. Yeah, right. So this is the thing I had to first see and realize that it exists, and in English it's actually for me one of the most complicated language as far as pronunciation goes.
Mm.
Again, because I didn't focus on it when I learned it in school, at school, just you know, learned it wrong, and it's so hard to relearn it. So now my rule when I learn a new language is to focus on pronunciation from the very beginning, because otherwise it's so hard to correct.
It makes a lot of sense, you know. Um, sometimes people when I speak in Russian, you know, my all that they say, oh, your pronunciation is pretty good, and I think like from my Spanish experience, like it was so different because you know we study Spanish in school, like you guys study English, and like I think I had to go through like the first couple of years of just like correcting my
Yeah,
terrible accent in Spanish because you know in the States we're like hola amigos.
hablo, yo hablo.
So
Right.
yeah, basically it's like that, and I think actually it was cool when I started studying Russian because I did do a good amount of listening, but I didn't have these years of just like you know listening to terrible Russian or
Mm,
speaking. I mean, maybe it is terrible Russian, but at least I mean, you know, at least I was you know I had more of a connection to the like the source of the language, the sounds of the language, so I was able to distinguish you know decent
mhm.
pronunciation,
Yeah,
you know, from
gotcha.
pronunciation. So I think you know I can see your approach of starting with you know with pronunciation mind from the beginning can help, and I think you know in my case it was just by listening, you know, because you develop an intuition and it's like all right, well, you know, Privyet.
Yeah. You
Juzia
know,
doesn't sound
it's
right.
again, it's all about the efficiency, because as I'm lazy, I want to like this shortest you know, route to success. So I understand that if I learn it wrong, then I have to spend more time and more effort to correct it. So better learn it the right way from the beginning, and better to, you know, again, to learn it fast, listening.
Absolutely. So there's this book that's really popular. It's become so popular in the past couple of years. It's called Atomic Habits, and he says to have real behavioral change, the most important thing is to consider yourself to have your identity as a person who does this activity. So it's like it's it would be kind of like it's not like you learn languages, it's that you're a language learner. Your identity is as a language learner, not just some person that does some kind of activity, right? And this
Mhm.
ensures kind of long-term success, that you will continue to do this behavior. And I know this is one thing that I really believe in. I think you've talked about before, the idea of having um, a lifestyle of languages and language learning and I know in my life, I feel very lucky at this period because, you know, I teach English. That's my form of income. Then I live in a foreign country, Mexico, where I'm able to walk outside and, you know, practice Spanish or meet people, speak Spanish. And then I speak Russian as my main I study Russian as my main activity. And I think, wow, I mean, my whole life is built around like this whole language thing. Um, do you have a similar situation, or what do you think about the idea of lifestyle and language learning?
Um, as somebody who doesn't live in a foreign country, I have to create this environment, language environment, artificially. And, you know, I think if you do this right, you can actually make this environment more efficient in a way than the whole living in a country. Because right now I'm listening to, whenever I got time, I walk around and listening to Polish, and sometimes it's 5 or even more hours a day. Like for the during the last week, was every day several hours listening and 30 minutes or an hour of speaking. If I were to live in Poland and doesn't and doesn't create this environment around myself, maybe it wouldn't even be possible to listen to Polish this much if I don't have a job there, or if I don't study there. If I just walk and, you know, just listen to people speak around, it wouldn't be. It would be like 5 or 10% of what I can do actually here in Russia. You know,
Exactly.
so people who move to a foreign country and, you know, that doesn't force this language input, doesn't create it, maybe they have less practice and less they progress in the language less than can progress somebody who creates it artificially. That's something that's I realized recently, that actually you can learn a language faster in your own country than somebody who lives there and doesn't actually create this practice opportunity. So when I learn a language, always I try to listen to it a lot, and this is like the same. Well, basically, of course, you don't do the grocery shopping and this basic stuff, but you can learn it very fast whenever you get to the country.
Of course.
But the whole core, the whole core of the language, you can learn it in your own country. So yeah, I create this environment, and then also I'm subscribed to YouTubers in all the languages I learned, Instagrammers, and I have friends from different countries. I have students, and during the class, I translate something in their language. I help them. So my life is also work this way, that mm, languages are around, always around. Um, and I actually don't have to. Of course, I create this environment, but once I created it and made it a habit, I just don't think about it. It's my
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I completely understand what you're saying. I don't know if you noticed this, but you know, some time ago I had this idea to study a language 40 hours in 1 week, right? So I did it last year. Then, you
Hmm.
know, I said that I was going to do it again, and it just actually happened last week. And lots of people online really got interested. It's called the 40-hour, 7-day
Hmm.
language challenge. And basically, you spend time with your language, you know, 40 hours or as much as you can do. And, you know, I tweeted something. I said, you know, I live in Mexico, but actually it feels like Russia, you know, because I
Hmm.
literally created the immersion environment. And I agree. I mean, you can learn like the base or the main part of the language, and, you know, on your own, you fill in the details when you need them. There
Hmm.
you go. Because I live in Mexico, and well, now that we're in this quarantine thing, it feels like kind of I live in Mexico less than normal because I'm spending much more time in my apartment. I'm seeing people a lot less, so I have a lot less contact with people in Spanish than I ever have. You know, I'm doing my English classes, then I study Russian. So sometimes when I don't get to speak that much Spanish, and it's surprising for someone that lives in the country. But just like how you said, I mean, you walk on the street, maybe you hear some people chatting, but this is like not enough, you know,
Of
input.
course,
So
right.
it's
Eh,
about creating your environment at the end of the day.
Right. And also, if you move to a new country, it's a bit of a challenge to find friends. And
It's not
once you
easy.
find them,
It is.
you cannot meet them every day for 5 hours because they work, they study. And here you have podcasts who you can listen to 10 hours a day, every day.
Mm.
So basically, this artificial thing is, if we work on it, it could be more efficient than the real life environment in a language, in a
Right.
country.
I think that you can get more language inputs being in your country or in another country. But I do think that there are some kind of emotional aspects that help about living in the country, you know, the
Of
idea of
course.
emotional connection, being with
Hmm.
people. Um, so it's not like one thing is 100% better than the other, but in terms of language,
Yeah.
you can get a lot of that language in you. But
You have more motivation when you see everybody speak that language, and when you see it's written everywhere, of course, because sometimes you can ask yourself, why am I studying Russian? Why am I studying Russian being in Russia and not knowing where I can go to Poland because it's closed? So yeah, but it's it depends on how what motivation you have. If it's a strong motivation, then it doesn't matter where you live. If if not, maybe a trip to that country and spending some time there doesn't necessarily um, moving there. Just spending some time, like with my trip to Italy, can give you a lot of motivation.
of course. And I think I would like to think that whatever country I would spend a significant amount of time in, I would learn the language because, you know, one thing that's really motivating when you're in the country is when all these things are happening in a different language and people have to explain it to you in like your language or in another language. That's actually kind of frustrating. And you're like,
Hmm.
you want to be a part of it and, you know, experience it. But that's one thing. So um, you have learned quite a few Romance languages, and I was watching in one of your videos that you mentioned that even though that you don't study, let's say, I don't know, regularly, let's say Portuguese, that by your knowledge or studying of other Romance languages, it has even helped you with, let's say, Portuguese or some other languages. Can you think of ways that that happened? Because I thought that was interesting. You mentioned about improving your foreign languages by just simply, you know, having interaction or studying other languages in that language family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. I That's something I noticed, that I actually spend zero amount of time at practicing Portuguese, and sometimes I use Spanish. I Because it's more popular. I have friends there, and I noticed that I don't forget actually Portuguese, and I always can understand it. I always can speak a little bit on in it, and that's because of my usage of Spanish.
Mm.
Because I just don't use and the way I learned Portuguese is also very interesting, because I did two things. The first thing, I listened to podcast every day for 30 minutes, just walking to my bus station and the metro station, which was a little longer, and I could use this time to listen to Portuguese. And the second thing was speaking to with my Brazilian friends. And the fun thing was that I started speaking in Spanish with them, and they responded me in Portuguese. And this
Oh,
way, little by little, I started picking up Portuguese, picking up word by word, grammar by
Nice.
like grammar construction by another one, and turned out after two 2 months I could speak somehow Portuguese, and after half a year, I was basically almost the same level like in my Spanish.
What? Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
two
What an
things.
interesting method. Oh.
Two things. Just listening to it every day for 30 minutes, and that was actually a podcast for native speakers, for Brazilians. But it had transcript. So the podcast is called Café Brasil. If someone was interested, and speaking, that's it. No grammar at all. Haven't opened a book of a grammar book in Portuguese at all. Nothing on the internet. Haven't read anything. Just listening and speaking. And this has some disadvantages because I'm not very confident when I speak about when I have to use they, and I actually not sure how to conjugate verbs in this
Mm-hmm.
form. But it's a good experience because I learned only the things I need. Nothing, and something that I learned by this experience, that you actually don't have to learn everything. When you go to school, they teach you all the grammar the language have, and you don't need it. Basically, if you want to speak, you just need to have a good understanding. This is actually the second observation I have, is that speaking is not a very useful thing right now for me, because most of the time, 90% of the time, I listen to something.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, every now and then I have to speak, as like right now, in English, and I'm not very confident, but at least when it comes to understanding, I can understand pretty much everything in English. And these interviews, these opportunities to speak, they're not very often. So I got to the conclusion that for me, the most important thing is to understand, to have a good understanding of a language, and it's something I work a lot, spend a lot of time. And as speaking is something, for now, maybe when I move to New York or something, I will need to you know to not to be ashamed when speaking English. I can work on it. I can speak every day, as I do with Polish right now, an hour or longer, and within a couple of months you can activate the language pretty fast, I guess.
Right.
So that's it. But I forgot about what I talked about the first place.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You were telling me
Yeah,
how
we
you
talked about
learned
Portuguese.
Portuguese, right?
Yeah, right.
That's super interesting. Like I've talked to some language learners on here, and like they've had some ways and to learn languages, and I go, oh, that's cool. That's also a cool way. It reminds me of a couple years ago. I took my buddy came to visit me here in Mexico, and we went to the old Aztec pyramids, and we climbed these Aztec pyramids, and I remember that there were two groups, like there were two guys and another two guys, and one group was speaking Spanish to the other group, and the group was speaking it was Portuguese. Because I'm like, oh, wait, that's not Spanish. And they were communicating Spanish, Portuguese, two Mexicans, two Brazilians, and they were just having a wonderful time. And it was just so interesting to observe what was happening, because two different groups of people, two different languages, but they were just having a good time. And it's like you were speaking Spanish, and somehow that was that turned into Portuguese, and then
It works. It works. And you reminded me about the other thing that I practiced recently, is that it's also about the efficiency and about being lazy. I have some friends that speak Russian, and we're communicating in our own languages.
oh
So
yeah, oh yeah.
I'm speaking like speaking or writing. Basically, it's writing or sound messages, voice messages, and yeah, I just doesn't bother myself to remember how's it called in Italian and stuff, and just say it in Russian, and they say in their language, and it works fine. I'm excited about this way of communicating, because yeah, basically it's easier for us as language learners to understand, of course, than to speak, and the communication in this way is more precise. It's more it's easier and pretty exact, pretty precise, and it's just the same, almost the same as speaking to a native, somebody who speaks your native language uh, as a native, and so it's super efficient. It's not the best way to practice languages, but it's it's another motivation I'm not really working on output that much, because it's I just maybe past this period when I wanted to show off my speaking abilities. Right now I don't care. Just for me it's
Right.
important to understand, because that's something I do all the time. I'm a listener. All the time I listen to something, get some knowledge as how's this guy is called, um, Lopez. He's have you heard about him? The guy with Lamborghinis who talks about the importance of knowledge.
Like, his name's
Ty Lopez.
Lopez.
Yeah, right.
Rings a
So
bell.
for me, knowledge is very important, and I listen to a lot of stuff and watch YouTube. And now, as I live in Russia, I don't need to speak. When I get to, I want to, because I want to live in different countries. I want to live in Poland for some time, for in Italy, in USA, and like in many countries for some months. And at that point, I'm gonna focus on the speaking. But yeah, that's my approach right now.
We were talking right before the interview, and you said something that I thought was really interesting. You said that, I was talking to you about how, my Spanish opportunities have gone down in the recent time. And you said you don't worry about losing the level in your language. I thought that was really interesting. It kind of goes along with what we were saying, that you.
Yeah, exactly. People ask me, Artem, how you maintain your languages, and I respond, I don't maintain them. I don't care about getting them, because I have one life on this planet, and I'm curious about the whole world. I don't want to. There are people who are interested in Italy and the Italian language, and spend their whole dedication, and they dedicate, actually, they forgot this word, they dedicate their whole life to this culture and country, and that's fun, that's great. But I want to not go down deep to one country, but maybe learn a little bit about different cultures. And for me, language learning, it's more than other, is learning about the culture, about the mentality of the people. And I already discovered something about Italy, Italians, about Spain, Spanish speak. How you call it in English? Spanish speaking countries.
Countries, yeah.
Countries, French and stuff. So all these cultures are great, but I want to discover something new about Poland, about Czech Republic, about I don't know, Sweden, and maybe Japan, and all the cultures the world has to offer to us. And of course, I cannot, go very deep into each of them, because otherwise I have to spend too much time. So it's always a decision whether you are working on a language up to a proficiency to C2,
Mhm.
which is also great. And I'm inspired about people who have this level in different languages. I don't know how they get there, but I'm okay with have intermediate level and go to another language, and I'm okay with forgetting and having my level going down, because this way I have more time to practice new languages.
Right.
And whenever I have the opportunity to again go to Italy, spend there some time, I can always go back to the language, because once you get to intermediate level, it's not a problem for you to actually pretty fast relearn it and reactivate it. It's very difficult to start a language from scratch and get it to the intermediate point. And it's okay, it's not that complicated once you build this core to a little bit forget it and then go back to it. So I'm all right with not maintaining. It's a natural thing for me to do the things I'm interested about right now. And I don't want languages to be this hurdle, something I have to work on because I learned it and I have to maintain it. I I think if I don't need it and I forget it, actually it's a good job of my brain to, you know, liberating the space for something new.
Right. So you have studied a lot of languages, and some of them maybe you didn't have some success in. But would you say that out of all the languages that you have studied, um, would you have preferred to spend that time doing something else or studying another language, or every language you studied, are you happy to have studied it? For example, you've studied Thai. I don't know how much effort you put into Thai or German. Uh, After spending some time with these languages, do you think that was time that you're happy having spent, or do you think you would have distributed that in other areas that time?
That's a great question. I'm very happy about deciding at the age of 19 to finally spend time on something useful, because before that period I just, you know, as a kid I spent my time, I wasted my time basically. Well, now wasted, but I didn't do anything good, anything useful.
I know what you mean.
uh, yeah, so generally being able to understand and speak several languages, it's a good thing. um, as far as the very basic communication around the world, you can travel, you can use these languages, and the business opportunities that you opened, and it's easier for you to find clients, for example, if you speak their language, and it's a good thing. And I'm not generally I'm not how I can say it, I I don't regret.
Hmm.
I don't regret spending this time. It's a really good thing. It's not that complicated actually to watch YouTube and the TV shows and stuff, and it gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of benefits. If we go into details and talk about German and Thai, there, I don't know. Maybe I if the fact that I started and spent some time learning these languages made me learn more about these countries and
Okay.
cultures and people, and that's a good thing. But maybe with these languages, I spend too much time uh, realizing at the same time that it's not something I'm really passionate about. But I just wanted to, you know, doesn't feel a loser or something like that, that I quit. And
Hmm.
I struggled many years and months and years with German, for example, and still not learning it and not getting, just because I wasn't really interested, wasn't really motivated, and but I didn't want to feel this thing that I can't.
Like this.
So there I don't know, maybe I should realize, I should have realized that just go to another language, because that's actually what I did with the Polish. And I before I had this mentality that if I started a language, I have to learn it at least to an intermediate level with which was a couple of times in a row, like Italian, then French, then Spanish, then Portuguese, and then German, and that wasn't working out.
Right.
But I had, courage to finally get to, because I also tried Greek, I also tried Swedish and Thai, and so 4 languages that I haven't succeeded basically. And I had the courage to go to Polish and quit all these languages and go to Polish. And actually now I'm quite good at Polish as if we compare it with other languages. So it's something I learned about, that sometimes it's better to switch to something you're more interested.
Absolutely. It's a very good point. And I think it's something that anyone watching could really learn from or be inspired from. I heard some advice about reading. It's like if you start a book and you read it for a while, you don't like it, you have no obligation to finish it. Sometimes it's better just to cut your losses, say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to go do something that I like. And this is kind of what you did with languages. And that's good. If I'm not mistaken, your number one your number one motivation to learn languages is the fact of being able to travel and use it. Is this true?
Yeah, that's right. I'm addicted traveler. I love to travel, and now as the frontiers are closed, we actually have the opportunity to travel in Russia, and I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, the
And
borders are
now
closed.
Borders, yeah, the borders are closed, and now I'm using like this opportunity to travel in Russia, and here I don't have to use any other language, but I still, as we started this conversation, create this environment artificially when I walk around. So it's as if I were in Poland actually, because I hear all the time the Polish language, and because it's a whole there's a great difference between going to a country and being able to speak a language and not being able to speak a language. A whole another experience. And understanding this, I have a strong motivation learning a language, because I understand that if I speak a language, I can get more experience, more fun. I will be able to meet people there, to maybe it would be more fun to go to couch surfing to hostels and there speak the local language, although in hostels usually they use English because there are many foreigners. And also when you learn a language, you get to know people from there, and you can go to visit them. And I've done it many times, and yeah, for me it's so related actually to traveling and language learning. It's so related, and that's a great way. Basically, maybe it's I don't know if you can learn about the country more by learning a language or by actually going there and traveling. I guess it's something that helps, and yeah, now I'm forgetting the words, but something that completes the whole experience and knowledge about the country, by learning it, by listening to music, by watching films, and by speaking to people, and by going there and looking at it and
Becomes so real.
engaging in it. Yeah,
Of course. And it's interesting because you are a Russian native, a Russian person who is now studying Polish, and I think that's pretty cool because you find in so many situations people that speak Romance languages speak other Romance languages, but in the case of Slavic languages, I don't see many cases of, let's say, a Russian speaker who's like, I'm going to study Belarusian or I'm going to study Polish. So I'm kind of curious, what is the Polish language like from the perspective of a native of another Slavic language? Because I can ask this question to some other, you know, Romance language natives, and I kind of have an idea for myself since I speak Spanish. But what's it like for a native of a Slavic language, for example, in your case, Russian? How do you perceive Polish when you hear it, when you hear people speak the language?
You know, this is a very interesting topic because from one point, it's of course it's easier. It's easier for me to learn, let's say, Polish than Spanish, because of course it's a Slavic language, because we have the same expressions, we have the same idioms, and the idioms I would never understand in Spanish or in Italian. I understand from like without no translation in Polish because they're pretty much the same. But I would say that for me, learning Spanish as a native speaker of Russian was easier than learning Polish.
What?
Because
wow,
that's something not very intuitive, because you know it's a different language family. But the thing is that the structure of the Slavic languages is more complicated, because you have cases, you have more forms, just more forms, more grammar, and whenever you talk, when it goes to about understanding, it's all right. I wouldn't say that it's easier for me, because it's easy for Ukrainians, for Belarusians, but Russian actually is quite different from any other Slavic language. I heard somewhere that within all Slavic languages, Russian is the one which has the most, you know, different vocabulary.
right.
So yeah, you have a lot of. I had a lot of struggle learning it, and still I'm learning. Like it's been 2 years, and still I'm learning the words, and it's not that's easy actually. But when it comes to Spanish, you actually have less possibility to make mistakes, because like for example, I don't know, yo creo que esto es algo que te guste, correct, right? Because subjuntivo, I don't speak it, I don't use it well, but you get the idea. And like the same thing in Russian. Я думаю, что это что-то интересное для тебя, or we have to use the cases. Я пошел к нему, потому что я узнал, что у него есть. It's hard for me to find the example, but the point is that whenever you like create a sentence in Russian or in Polish, like you have so many possibilities to be mistake. You know, there's always a word like ending or somewhere or some part at the beginning of a word, or you know,
right.
In Russian especially, you have problems with the accent. In Polish, it's okay. They have it's fixed basically, but just the idea of whenever you speak Polish, you always have to be focused on the endings, on the cases, just more grammar, just more possibility to mistake. And
yeah.
Spanish, it's, you know, the grammar is way simpler, and same goes with English. That's the reason why it's actually an international language, because Russian wouldn't be an international language because it's so hard. Right. So actually, as far as grammar goes, I think that Spanish is actually easier for a Russian native speaker to learn than Polish or than Czech.
Okay. Interesting, because you know maybe you could, yeah, of course you could say like let's say grammar of Latin languages, you know, well, it's easier than Slavic languages, but like from an English perspective, like I can basically say the same thing. Like there's so many things that like for an English native to get like confused about in Spanish, because there's like these options of verbs,
Right.
like, is it like ia, is it ava, is it, like all these different verb forms in English is just, I mean, the classic one is the ed. Of course, there, there's other forms, but I mean, so
Right.
much
And you
is just
have that.
ed.
So basically, for an English speaker, you have Spanish, and then you have the same thing which you have in Spanish, but cases. And
Yeah.
it's multiplies by 10 or 20. I don't know.
And I think, at least in the case of many languages, maybe them all, I don't know, but like the things that will still cause you problems years after learning the language are basically like the things that you learn in the first year of the language. I mean, I'm just taking Spanish for example. You have like ser and estar, there's por, para. It's like these small things that you think are so small actually become like, the more advanced you get in the language, you're like, why is it that? Why would it be that? And there's like a bunch of these things. Like, so when we talk about Spanish, it's like, it seems like there's not like any one concept that's overly difficult, but there's just all these like these road traps, and that's like how you're describing Russian or Polish, and that's kind of interesting. Like the different perspectives of like of the language learning. Because you come from a Slavic language, I come from a Germanic language, and it's kind of interesting to hear the perspectives of how we perceive languages through, let's say, our native languages or related languages. That's cool.
Yeah, and I don't know how to how to learn Polish or Russian, if you're a native speaker of English, because the whole concept, because I understand the cases, and 50% they're the same in Polish and Russian, and I have half of the work that somebody who speaks English as a native language has to do. So really, I admire English native speakers who learn Russian, who learn Slavic languages, because it's a really complicated route, and um, you have to have a lot of motivation, and that's great.
I can
It
imagine.
doesn't stop people. Doesn't
No,
stop people.
no. I mean, I'm I'm one of those people that's just like, I just like dove, and I'm like hoping for the best, and I'm trying, but it's like, the more you study a language, the more you become less naive about the language, and you see all of the things that you know are basically ahead of you to learn or to improve, or you're going to have to be going through long periods of learning in this process. And you know I mean, it's
I just wanted to add some things, something that because of the complication while learning grammar, um, I'm keeping promoting the listening approach, because if you listen to a lot, some things you actually gonna you're gonna use them naturally. You just be so used to this form, because learning Polish for me was a very natural experience. I haven't started it from a book. I just found a podcast with transcript and listened to it for 2 years,
well,
and that's it. That's it. Well, 2 years, because of course it's for me it would be faster if I did it more intensively. But I just was a little bit at that point disappointed with my success at language learning. Like I haven't learned German and Greek and other languages, and I just okay, let's try Polish, and I'm not gonna force myself, just gonna have fun with it. And now, having done this whole thing, I some things I just really don't think about it. I just use them correctly. Like for example, some conjugations, some verbs, and some vocabulary choices. And the tutors I talk with daily in Polish right now, they're actually pretty impressed, and that I haven't learned a day grammar. That's what you do with Russian, right? Right now.
for the first I've been studying Russian for like 2 years and let's say 4 months, and only in the past couple of weeks I've started to look at a grammar book or get some kind of concept of this. But everything that, well, not everything, but like most of the things in terms of like the cases that I've seen so far, like I actually kind of knew that from just my input. Now, this doesn't work in all cases, but like for example, like in some cases, like it's like
The most useful ones, the
yeah,
most commonly used.
yeah, like in Moscow, or like I read the book. Yeah, читаю книгу. So it's like
Yeah,
oh, it's like there's some kind of action, so it changes the ooh, or like oh, you live in this place or you're someplace, so it's like vid, and it like has like an e. It hasn't worked like in every single case in terms of my understanding or just me noticing, but in like the most common ones, it definitely um kind of is just like a clear thing.
exactly. And you create actually your own grammar, because whenever you see the patterns, you get to know the patterns, then it as if you learned it from the grammar book. It just, you created this rule yourself, like your brain made this rule for you by catching these patterns.
Right.
So it's actually nice to be this explorer, this discoverer who doesn't just because for me in traveling it's the same. I prefer not to look at the mm, uh, places this city has to offer. I just walk, and somehow I bump into something historical, something interesting, and that's something I'm curious while learning a language. And as far as the pronunciation, for example, I don't learn the phonetical rules. I don't learn the pronunciation and the alphabet uh, like in theoretical way. I
Mm,
just look at the text and listen to it and make my own rules. And then if it's wrong, it's nothing. It's not terrible to look at actually to look at grammar, but I prefer to do it the first practice to try to get it, try to understand it by myself, and then
right.
get to uh, something that other people like created for me, like this explanation. Um, so
Right.
yeah.
So I think that you are one of the people that has heard the most amount of foreigners speak Russian, maybe on earth. So um, after having heard so many people speak your language, I'm sure you've learned about many different strategies that people have learned. Um, do you think it's necessary at some points for people to take the grammar more seriously?
Uh, I it depends. First of all, it depends on your preferences. If it's something you're interested about, if it's your mind, if you're a person that has this um, you know logical approach, I don't know, like mathematical, let's put it like that, like this
Mm-hmm.
mathematical approach to learning, then it's great. It's actually it's a good thing for you to like, actually to like learning grammar.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, actually, from my experience, people don't like spending too much time on the tables, grammar tables. So for them, I would recommend to focus on vocabulary, focus on understanding, because it would be you can always actually open the grammar book, but once you understand the text, because grammar cannot exist without words, and
Yes.
if you learn a grammar, that you always gonna learn words. So what you can do is actually first learn words. Doesn't spend any time bother and like struggle learning grammar, but just focus on learning words, translating them one by one. Of course, not using a list of words, because it's also not very efficient, but just reading, listening, and little by little, expanding your vocabulary. And then, of course, by expanding vocabulary, by learning the words, the vocabulary, you're going to somehow learn some grammar naturally. You're gonna be used to it. It's gonna be easier for you to then start approaching grammar in a, theoretical way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do, because Russian, when I look at it as from the perspective of a learner, um, it's terrible actually to start learning Russian. This whole uh, whole terrible thing, which is called the Russian grammar, just knowing nothing. And yeah, I would recommend to focus on vocabulary, to have fun with the language, to listen to music, to find the reasons to like it, because grammar, I guess it's not something you fall in love with when you learn Russian. So yeah, first 6 months maybe focusing on the vocabulary, maybe speaking as well, because it's also a good motivation. It's more than anything, it's about motivation when you get to know the speakers uh, of that language. So that's what I recommend. But of course, I I'm not the one who says that no, don't learn grammar. It's terrible. If you like it, okay. I think
Right.
it's not that efficient to start from the grammar. It's gonna be easier, way easier to do it later,
Mm-hmm.
and better to start with understanding, with the vocabulary, with the pronunciation, but just by repeating, and then go to grammar and fill in the gaps actually, because you already gonna learn, gonna have some grammar. You're gonna um, have it, and then you just gonna make it, nicer, make it, I don't know, like a sculpture. You're gonna have something like a form, and then with this detailed approach, which is not necessarily books. You can actually write texts. You can write texts, send them to native speakers. That's something I do. I prefer to do, because then I also learn the things I need, because I write about the things I'm interested about, and about something I possibly and probably will talk. So they correct me, and then after 20 texts, for example, your grammar going to be way better. And
Right.
again, no book is open. So there are different approaches, just to find the way, the one you like, and yeah, just
Excellent. Cool. I think you answered like two or three of my questions just in that whole monologue, which is cool. One of my questions was like, how would you learn Russian if you weren't a native? And I think you gave us a nice idea of maybe how you would do it. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, but I'm not sure I would learn it, because it's so hard. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
that's actually why I think that you hear this, oh, study Chinese because it's going to be the international language one day. I actually think that it's not going to be, just due to the complexity and how difficult it would, how it would be to get like billions of people learning the language. So just for that reason, I find it unlikely.
Yeah, agree.
But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your travels and traveling through Russia, because every time I talk to you, you're in a different city, right? So
Right.
um, basically, I know you did a lot of traveling before. And what was the idea? Was it basically, okay, I can't really move outside of Russia, so let me explore my own country? What was the motivation? Was it similar to this?
Well, I have I have a dream or a goal to visit. I don't know if it's possible, and if I want, but the idea of visiting each country in the world sounds nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not only about visiting the country. It's a vague, term, because we can talk about uh, Russia, and we can talk about, let's say, Poland, and the one like you spent like a week in Poland, or I don't know, a month, let's say, and for of course for you within a month or 2 weeks, it's way easier to visit and to explore Poland than Russia. And when we talk about the countries, it's not only the fact that like crossing the border and stepping in Russia and that's it, you visited Russia. For me, it's like the idea of visiting the country, and it's it's also about visiting the regions, of this country and the most important cities. And Russia has a lot to offer. There's a lot of regions and places, and very different ones. And of course, as it's my own country, I want to explore it as well. So that's what I do. And there's gonna be some time in my life, as I thought before the pandemic, I thought that, well, now I travel around the world, and someday I will go to explore Russia. And now, as I have this opportunity, I use it as much as I can, because fortunately, we had the quarantine, and the first spring, like the first wave, when it started, the whole thing started in the world. We also were sitting in our homes and stuff. But then, since the summer, they opened like everything, and you could travel. And at that point, like, because I also spent this time at home, and I was like, what the fuck? I want to travel. I don't like this like lifestyle. And when I got the opportunity to actually travel again, I never stopped ever since. So now recently I counted, I visited 50 cities in Russia, and I'm can't wait to visit the rest, because I want to visit the biggest ones, because I'm from Novosibirsk, big city, and I lived in St. Petersburg, and I prefer big cities. I like when it's a lot of things to do, and there are people, and the hustle, and I like this lifestyle. So now I'm visiting just the most important, the most the biggest cities, the capitals of the regions. And for me, it's like exploring again, exploring different countries, because within Russia we have different cultures, different regions. And recently I visited the Caucasus, Russian Caucasus. It was also very fun. There's Islam there, so that's the whole another culture. That was great. And now I'm waiting for the moment when it's going to be not too cold to travel in Russia, and I'm going to explore Vladivostok, Baikal, and all the rest where I haven't been. So
wow.
Yeah.
What would you say you've learned about your country from traveling that maybe schools didn't teach you, or something like that? You must have experienced so much traveling to all these different places, and what was that like, experiencing your country in such a full perspective?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the fact of appreciating the my country, and how big it is. Because of course, like living in Russia, and seeing how Europe lives, how the US lives, we always like want to go there, and we just strive to maybe more comfort, stuff like that. And we usually don't don't look at our own country, unfortunately, because when it comes to um, spending some time in another country, like to go on the beach, you travel. I don't know how it's called in English. You know, when you just lay on the beach, this kind of trip.
Mm-hmm.
We rarely think about Russia. Of course, before the pandemic, we would go to Turkey, Thailand, and for the ones who have more money, Italy, Greece, and Spain.
Okay.
And when it comes to cultural trip, we would go to Europe, to, I don't know, um, France, Spain, Italy again, Germany, and so on. And the problem is that people are here always striving to the West and to other countries, and they forget that actually they're living in the biggest country in the world, and
Wow.
they don't have to do any visas. Actually, they don't have to do anything. It's actually right now it's so easy to travel. They no questions at all. Once I got stopped by a policeman, and he was just like looking at the documents, and he asked me, "What's your reason to, because he saw my place, the city I'm from. I'm from Novosibirsk, and I was in Sochi on the south. And he asked, "Why are you like here?" And I responded that, um, "Traveling. I travel." And he, "All right, no problem." you know, during the pandemic, there's no problem at all. And if it's not the pandemic, it's easier. So I started appreciating the fact that I can fly. For example, right now I'm in Volgograd, the city on the south, let's say. um, Tomorrow I can go to Vladivostok, then I can go to Kaliningrad, then I can go to Moscow, Novosibirsk, and that's a different, I wouldn't say that it's a whole different environment. Of course, it's Russia, it's still Russia, but it's a different mentality in a way, different way of living, different architecture, different
Wow.
landscape. And that's so awesome. I'm so actually um, blessed that I started to understanding the fact that I'm really happy about having born in Russia, because I get this territory like to travel
Wow.
without no problem, and that's so great. The other things I don't know what I understood. I understood that actually people are different, more different than I thought in different cities in Russia.
Wow.
That's maybe a different topic, because but to give you an example, like Moscow, they more, of course, it's a richest city in Russia, and they
Mm.
think and strive to money. That's you
Wow.
can see by their looks and stuff. In St. Petersburg, it's not very far away. It's not that it works that way, because people don't have that amount of money that people in Moscow have, and they have another way to to express themselves.
Wow.
So they're more artistic, let's put it this way. Then in
Oh, cool.
Krasnodar, they're striving to the Moscow lifestyle, but the fact that it's not the capital and stuff make them, well, I don't know how to put it, but it's like they're trying but not getting to it.
Oh, this is so interesting to hear this from your perspective as someone who's traveled. I love this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, how I've been told how in Brazil, like, you go to Rio de Janeiro, everyone's like working on their body and like they're going to the beach, but in Sao Paulo, it's like, it's like this kind of business city. And it's cool to hear these perspectives. And we're getting towards the end of the interview, but I want to ask you about basically this project that you're doing, this Russian Progress project, because you are really helping thousands of people all over the world learn Russian. I had to ask you about this. Where did this idea come from? How long were you thinking about it? How did you get it started? Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure all your fans really would want to know the origins of it.
Well, the fact that you're saying that thousands of people use it, and you know, learning Russian with it, that's actually something I cannot realize at this point. Of course, I get some messages and people are watching it, but I just cannot believe that actually people learning Russian from me,
Must be
and
crazy,
that's
man.
something
Wow.
that's crazy. That's something awesome, and I'm really happy to do this. The idea is very simple. I just learned the same way languages before, uh, English, Italian, French, Spanish. Whenever I learn a language, I try to find a podcast with transcript, a video with subtitles. And at some point, I thought, why not doing something like this in Russian, creating this content, because I have the both perspectives from the learner and the creator right now. And when I publish something, I understand. I try to always think about because I keep learning languages, and something I like, I try to apply it in my materials. Something I see that it doesn't work actually when you, for example, explain it a lot and making it boring. I don't do this. I just understand that actually the things you need are just content and interesting content and the transcript. That's all.
Oh yeah.
If you need a translation, if it's too complicated for you, I also, for some videos, I have subtitles on Patreon. I add translations and stuff. But the essence is just an interesting content in Russian, in clear Russian, better, because of course you're learning language, you're still learning, and just a text. That's it. Um, and it's I invite everyone to try to create something like this in their language, because it's a great way to learn. Because still, for some languages, it's hard to find this kind of content.
Yeah.
Like for Turkish, for I don't know, for rare languages. Now it's I found something like that for Greek, but at the point where I tried to learn it, there wasn't something like that. So if anyone is listening to it, any like even for English, even for Italian, even for Polish as well, because there are like just two podcasts or YouTube channels like this, and it would be great to have more contents like content like this. So I think it's it's great for everybody, because for me it's also nice to share some my trips, my thoughts about Russia, about Russian cities. That's something I do right now. I make some like I film something and then I talk about that and put it on the video. um, well, I just love it, and really so excited that I have this community, people who are watching it, and that's great. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I think you're a really interesting person. And it's really why I was so
Thank you.
interested in having you on the interview, because I'm interested in you as a language learner, from one language learner to another. I'm interested in you because you're this traveler and you've seen things from such different perspectives and you have different takes on things. I think that's super interesting. And also from the idea of a content creator, that you're actually giving something to the world for so many people to improve their lives. Like I see random language learners on Instagram or something like that, and they're like, oh, I'm studying Russian, and then they have like your video in the background. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, you know. And one of the things that I have in my mind, like always, is the idea of purpose. And what's my purpose? Am I doing my purpose? In my opinion, I think I am, but it's in different stages of my life. There's like a different purpose, and I have like this idea, basically right now I'm helping people through the English language. I'm giving the gift of my language to hundreds of people, that I know have improved English as a result of me. And that's really nice. I mean, you're doing it on a mass level. Then I think, well, I can go back to the States and I can maybe be a Spanish English interpreter at a hospital. So I'm using my language in another productive way, right? I'm helping people who are in need of it through language. Like this is like my idea, like kind of my idea of my purpose. Then I think maybe in a couple of decades, I can open up a school or schools for little American children to learn Spanish, right? You know, my dad my dad was from Mexico. My mom is American, so I came from like this kind of mixed family, and I think it's a beautiful way to honor my father and things like that. Then I had this idea of maybe like being able to return to Mexico and to help little children or young children or something like that learn English, because I remember when my dad was still alive, he told me that he wanted to go back to Mexico and to be like a father figure to kids who were not so privileged. And I thought that was beautiful. So I like have these whole ideas. Have you ever thought about your purpose and what do you want your, you know, when people remember you, what do you want them to think of? What do you hope that you have accomplished?
Well, that's really nice to hear from you that you're like basically your purpose is exposed to other people, and that's something I admire. My purpose, at least at this point in my life, is actually focused more on my personal development because I want to explore this world. I want to see as many countries as I can, and I want to explore the cultures. I want to learn as many languages as I can, just to, you know, see what this world has to offer. And if I can help, like if I can do both things, help others and like improve myself, which I actually do with Russian Progress and with my other YouTube channel. And what I do is actually both things, because um, like if I make this video in Russian, somebody can learn Russian, which is like I cannot believe that it's something that's actually happening.
Wow.
But this also allows me to, of course, to travel to live. So that's a great way, like for, you know, both of us, the world and me. So I don't know, maybe in the future I would also, the thing that I have in mind, I want to somehow contribute to the development of Russia. To um, also I have another way I could contribute to the world. Let's say, like right now I'm learning Polish, and you know, from the history we have a bad history, let's put it this way, and people from both sides still have this negative associations with another country. And here I would love to make these countries closer, to make the way that we would just become closer, and uh, Poles would learn Russian, Russians would learn Polish. That's something I do right now. I'm learning Polish. I'm very interested in this culture, people, and country, and I'm so excited about seeing
Wow.
people learning Russian as well. And just, you know, just I don't think about it that much, because well, at this point I guess I have to focus on myself. Uh,
Of course.
but yeah, it would be nice to, you know, somehow contribute to Russia, maybe, because you know the state of some Russian cities is not very nice, and if I could somehow contribute to the development, would be nice. And also to, you know, also it's all related to make people from other countries um, to sparkle their interest into Russia, to maybe go to Russia, to break the stereotypes, and with Russians as well, to learn other languages. So basically, if we put it like a simple idea that I have, to make people to create love. I don't know,
No, I
to,
get it.
you know, I just don't know how to put it in English, but you know, just language learning. It's a way to do this, to
Absolutely.
show your appreciation of the culture and the country. And that's something I love to do, and maybe by my example I can show that it's fun, and it's super nice to towards other people who speak this language. So
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I haven't formulated as as nice as you did,
Oh wow.
but
I mean,
something I have in mind.
but what you say is true. I mean, I'm so passionate about language learning and languages in general because it's, I mean, it really does connect people. And, I when my dad died, I mean, I moved to Mexico and I started learning Spanish, and I met my Mexican family for really the first time. And through this whole experience, I had, basically just an incredible experience, and a whole new world opened up to me after such a dark period. So for me, I always say that I feel that language learning in a way kind of saved my life. And, you never know how it can affect someone else or how it can improve your life. And that's why I have this idea of, let's say, having little children learn Spanish, because the more that we learn languages, just the more our mind becomes open, and we're more understanding as people in general. And I'm glad that you have similar ideas. So thank you so much for being here, Artem or Artyom.
Thank
Any
you.
last words before we say goodbye?
Thank you so much. It was a really nice talk, and would be nice to would be nice to know what you guys think. Tell us in the comments about your experience, about your thoughts. Welcome to Russian Progress. If you want to learn Russian, all my videos have Russian subtitles, so you can just translate and watch the videos, and that's basically enough to start. What else? If you're interested about Russia, you can go to my Instagram, because I post every day something. It's Artem Nazarov. You can put in the description, right?
Of course.
And that's it. Thank you for, if you got to this point. Well, respect.
Salute.
It was super fun. Thank you, Mark.